keynote 2 years ago, and it's a very different keynote 2 years ago, so I'm saying very different things today. But before I start, I just want to be really clear, because I am going to talk about opportunities that have come out of COVID, and I just want to be clear that COVID is probably the worst social disaster that we have ever lived through in peacetime. Hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives, millions more have been ill, millions still are ill with it. I'm not trying to make light of that situation. I wouldn't choose to live through it again. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not suggesting that to myself. But what I am saying is, I think we can all acknowledge that we've all seen some opportunities from that situation. Whether it was the box sets that you got to watch during lockdown, or personally I got COVID just before Christmas last year, which meant I spent Christmas in isolation. Wasn't that bad? So, you know, there have been some advantages to where we are, and that's what I kind of want to focus on a bit today. I just want to talk about where the opportunities have been. Now, I'm going to talk about the opportunities from a National Museums Liverpool point of view. I appreciate that we are a big national organisation, and you know, we have 600 staff and however many sites and all of those kind of things, but I hope that some of you will see a relevance in and a link to some of the stuff I talk about today. So the first thing, of course, is we all remember that moment when we were told to stay at home, and we were told, you must stay at home. I won't make personal point then, I was about to. I won't. It came obviously a week or so, a few days after we were told not to visit pubs, theatres or social venues. So we all in the room, I'm sure, had been through a few days of going, what does that mean? Are we open? Are we shut? What does that mean? But actually the point at which we were told we must stay at home, I think is one that all of us will remember. But from that, there came a range of opportunities that we discovered at National Museums Liverpool. And there's some images on the screen that you don't need to be able to see particularly. But this image here, the various pictures of me at different freeze frames, always a delight. I was going to show you some of these videos. But the first opportunity for me is we're staffed, as I said, we're staffed with 650 people. When we were all in venue, my team were based across at least 10, if not 12, different venues across the Liverpool City region. So it's quite difficult for me to speak to my team at once. We've just held our second all-staff away day, and I have to hire the ACC Arena in Liverpool to do that, which means it doesn't happen very often. But what we did in COVID was we started doing, I used to do blogs, and I'm sure many of you all do this, but we started doing these little videos, and I was filming these, as you can see from this image, on my phone often. And if I'd have shown you the clips from them, what you'd see is me going, Happy Friday, Happy Friday, Happy Friday. Because it would appear that's how I started every clip for the first period of lockdown. But these clips went out to the whole team on Fridays, where I could give everybody an update as to what's going on. That level of communication, we could have done that before COVID, but it never dawned on me to do it before COVID, in all honesty. And so suddenly now, I don't do them every Friday because nobody needs to hear from me that often, quite frankly. But I still do these video clips. I still do, regular video clips to the whole team that they can watch whenever. It was a great opportunity for us to communicate in a way that was different. It was cheap, it was effective. It's 3 minutes of my life rather than me writing a blog. It was easier. There's no misinterpretation of tone that you can sometimes get when you write something because they can see me saying it. And of course we've gone further and we do live events now so that people can question and we can be more interactive. All of those things became a huge opportunity that mainly came about because of another opportunity in that we've been trying to roll out Teams and Microsoft 365 and NML for about 18 months before COVID hit. And no one was very keen. And then all of a sudden everybody was very keen. So my IS team, bless them, went through what was probably 3 weeks of hell for them while they tried to roll out kits and give people training that they'd been trying to get to engage in training for months, and no one was very keen to do so. And suddenly everybody realised that if they wanted to stay in touch, they had to learn how to use their Teams accounts. They had to learn how to do the video calls and that kind of stuff, to use the chat function rather than the emails and all of that kind of thing. Honestly, we moved further in 3 weeks than we had managed in 18 months. huge opportunity that we'd have never got to before. There's a spreadsheet on the screen of a list of things, and all I'm really showing is that there is a list of things on a spreadsheet. These were our lessons learned and what went well documented from the first lockdown. And the fact is, there was a whole list of things that came out of the first lockdown, of things that we wanted to keep as an organisation and move forward. The one that possibly worried me the most was collection checks. I kind of thought we did that beforehand. Carrying on. But the curatorial team had this thing about one of them would go in every week and do the collections check. And after our staff were in during COVID, they were, we still fed our fish, we still were in checking the buildings and all of those kind of things. But the curators went in and actually did stores, walked around stores, probably more frequently than they do when they're in. And those collection checks became a real kind of, it was an excuse to get out of the house and go in. So they managed to do all of those kind of things. And so the picture of Alison, who is from Lady Lever, you'll see, this is Alison doing a little video to the team about doing her collection check, because it wasn't just me that started doing videos, the rest of the leadership team did them, other members of staff did them to kind of keep in touch. So that kind of was it was quite a big step forward, but really basic technology that existed before that's cheap. We carry it around on our phones, in our pockets all the time, and now we use it all of the time. And maybe we'd have got there. In fact, undoubtedly we'd have got there. But we got there a lot quicker when we were told to stay at home, because it kind of made a point. The next one is the empty galleries. One of my greatest joys of working in museums used to be walking around the galleries before we opened. I used to love it. That kind of, the staff getting ready, we're about to open the doors, the galleries are empty. I used to love that. I hate it. I cannot, it makes me feel physically sick even today. I don't do it anymore because we had months of empty galleries and my God, that was painful, wasn't it? Let's be honest. However, there are some opportunities of empty galleries as well. Not least, our online tours, which we had started to dip our toe in the water of, suddenly took off massively. Much easier to film an online tour when there's no one in the gallery, no one getting in the way. You can literally tour most of our venues now from our website through online tours. It's great accessibility. Our security team has a slight issue, but it's kind of fine. And so our online tours really move forward with those kinds of empty gallery spaces. And our digital content moved forward massively as well. Because suddenly all of our curators were desperate to get into the galleries and talk about something that they normally talk to the public about. They went out and we did different and more unusual and more creative online content, and we've continued to do that, as I'm sure many of you guys have as well. And then the other big one for us around the advantage of online of empty galleries is before COVID, National Museums Liverpool was open 7 days a week, and very difficult to deep clean the carpet when you're open 7 days a week, as I'm sure you'll all appreciate. Very difficult to do those kind of deep clean stuff. My housekeeping team were delighted. Honestly, they thought empty galleries was one of the best things that had happened because they could clean a space, walk away and come back to it and it'd be exactly the same thing. They thought this was marvellous. But no, seriously, I wouldn't have said, I of course wouldn't have said that our venues were dirty before. But the level of cleanliness in, I think, most museums across the UK has improved exponentially since COVID because we did use that opportunity. And not just the deep cleaning, but other repairs and things like that have happened. All kind of positive and allowing us to do things in a slightly different way. The long-term separation that I'm sure we all felt, and various lockdowns throughout time that led to this healing, I guess. This image is one of my favourite images. This image is of an art installation called Rainbow Bridge that was part of the River of Light festival that happened in Liverpool last March. Not March just one, March before. Whilst we were actually still slightly in lockdown and under rules and regulations, but they did this outdoor light festival, and how beautiful does the Museum of Liverpool look behind Rainbow Bridge. But long-term separation, you think, well, really, what Was there any opportunities that came out of that? And the opportunities that I've put up here is, again, it's Teams linked. So we run a Teams channel now that is for the whole organisation called Staying Connected. And the Staying Connected bit, if I'm honest, I don't look at all of that often because the Staying Connected bit is generally staff chatting about different things and different kind of social interaction things that happen. So the examples that are on here is the Christmas quiz is on there, the brown bag lunches that we started doing virtually during COVID, where people would all come together and have their lunch and someone would talk about one of their collection pieces and then there'd be a bit of Q&A. The virtual yoga sessions, I've never attended virtual yoga, I don't know how it works, but that happens on Staying Connected. The bits that, the reason why I don't look at it too often, they do this quite often where they do some form of like scavenger hunts during the day. So this is the Museum of Liverpool's 10th birthday scavenger hunt. And basically on our online Staying Connected channel, our commercial team say, find me an object beginning with M. And people run around their homes and come back and photograph an object and post the object beginning with M. I'm not sure that's what they're meant to be doing during their day. But in terms of the social interaction, our Staying Connected channel became a real place for people to come together and to make a connection when we were all physically separated. As we started to come out of COVID, this channel started talking about buddy systems where people would go and walk dogs together or people would buy people's food for them and all of those kind of things. They started meeting up socially, all of those kind of things. It became a real social community that didn't exist before. That people were used to doing in their offices before, but we're doing online. And also when you're a team that is kind of a big team like ours that's dispersed across the organisation, people met one another in Staying Connected who had never met in real life. And until recently, haven't met in real life, which is, you know, an interesting kind of thing in lots of ways. We also, that kind of separation also made us be more creative about looking for ways in which we could interact. So the weekly videos that I talked about before became a big part of how we maintained the connection. But we also started doing, when we're separate and we're trying to recruit and all of those kind of things, we started doing these insight events, recruitment now. So if you're applying for a job at National Museums Liverpool, generally when you look on our website, you'll see that we do these insight sessions where the recruitment managers will do a Teams live event and they'll talk through the job and they'll let you meet other members of the team and they'll answer questions to people. They're recorded and they're posted onto our website, so if you can't make the session, you can watch it afterwards. It actually meant that we were giving people a better connection to National Museums Liverpool than we were before COVID, where we just asked them to apply for a job and we knew that we were going to see them face-to-face anyway. Because we were making that extra effort to kind of deal with that separation point, it became an opportunity of us thinking about things more creatively. And I think finally for me, the kind of in terms of the separation point and the opportunity of the separation point, and it goes back to this kind of roller coaster approach, I guess. I can't explain to you the feeling of reopening World Museum and the Walker Art Gallery after the first lockdown. After the lows of that, the high of reopening is something I've never experienced in my career, because I've never reopened a museum. We've always just been open. And so actually, that reconnection with purpose was a huge opportunity for us. You know, we lost our purpose during COVID because we couldn't see the people walking through the door, but it also helped us reinforce our purpose when we reopened, because we could, and the joy of that was truly incredible in lots of ways, and an opportunity that we wouldn't have got before because we did never shut, and therefore never reopened. The joy of reopening, it was definitely worth it for me. Now, the exhaustion bit. I thought really hard before I show you. I'm about to show a video clip. And I thought really hard about showing this video clip for 3 reasons. One, I have a rule that says I don't watch myself back on video. So, of all of the videos I've done, with the exception of this one that I've now watched to be able to show it to you, I've never watched them back. Okay? It's a rule I have, it's fine. Two, but no, there you see. I'm aware of the fact that I look bloody awful. Okay? I was slightly offended this morning because you guys said to me, oh yeah, I recognise you from your video, and I'm not I going to make a point about vulnerability. And I know that some of you in the room will disagree with the general principle of directors or CEOs showing vulnerability. That's your decision and that's fine. I'm going to show it and cringe slightly here, and then I'm going to talk about why I showed it. So I do think it's really important that, given the rollercoaster of a year that we've had, we all find time to just take a breath somewhere. And I think, November is a long way through the year, and certainly I think myself and other members of the senior leadership team are really beginning to feel the kind of strain of those up and downs of emotion all the time. So we have taken the decision that we are going to do a kind of full lockdown of business from Friday to Sunday, starting from next week. So for the last three weeks in November, we are shutting down the business from Friday to Sunday. We are not expecting anybody to be in any of the offices. Obviously, our IT colleagues will continue to look after the buildings, and with huge thanks to our colleagues in the aquarium team and the light centres, I'm sure they'll ensure that our animals are fed and looked after. But for everybody else, I do want us to take some time. I'm not expecting you to be in work. I'm not expecting you to be on email. I'm not expecting you to be doing any meetings or calls or any of those other things. We all need some time to take a break, and I know I've been encouraging you all to take holiday for a long time now. I guess now I'm telling you that you can't work on that Friday, Saturday or Sunday. My artwork looks nice though, doesn't it? Okay, so this is one of my weekly video clips, okay? This was in November. To just give some of the context for that, you will recall obviously in October here in Liverpool City Region, we had gone into what was then called Tier 3 in October, which meant that we were still open, but honestly there was no one around. It was painful, it was really painful. So we had done in October that had been really, really painful. This was November when we went into the second lockdown. This was undoubtedly my lowest point. And the reason I showed the video is not to particularly talk about the fact that, we shut down and all of those kind of things. For those of you who know me well enough, you can hear me, my voice tremble in the video. I look awful. I shut down our business, not, in all honesty, not thinking about anybody else, but because I couldn't cope. I was at absolutely rock bottom. I was knackered. I would, given the choice, have shut down. I'd have quite happily shut down for the whole November not come in. But we were in the middle of writing our National Museums Liverpool Director. We were doing a whole range of other stuff. The business, I couldn't have stopped the business in the way I wanted to, but I knew that if I didn't do something, I was going to hit a wall. And I walked into my leadership team a couple of hours, walked in virtually. I went into the leadership team meeting virtually a couple of hours before I did this video and said, we're shutting down on Fridays, we're going to a 4-day week. And it was incredible because they just all went, great, yeah. And that was it, that was the response, they went, yeah, great, yeah. Because I just couldn't cope. Now, as I said earlier, I have a rule that says I don't watch these things back. So I did this video and I sent it out, or my comms team sent it out. And within about 10 minutes of it going live, I started to get a whole range of Teams messages and emails from members of the team, not members of my senior management team, but members of my housekeeping team, members of my front of house team, curators, people in the media team, asking was I okay. Now, having watched this back, I understand why they're asking if I'm okay. But it was a level of vulnerability that I have never shown, or I hope I have never shown before. And I've kind of always been in the position, I get the fact that I've paid a lot of money to know the answer and know what I'm doing and just get on with it. And that often the team don't want me to go, I don't know, or I'm struggling, and they don't care, I get that. But actually in this moment, showing the vulnerability was probably the best thing I ever did. Because it moved the position of me being the director to just being a human being again. And we've lost some of that personal connection because of the separation. And so, if I'd have watched it back before publishing it, would I have published this video? Absolutely not. I wouldn't have done. And believe me and my comms team had a discussion afterwards about why they allowed this video to go out. and it became an equaler in terms of who we are as human beings. And so I show it for that reason, that it removed the hierarchy. It showed a level of vulnerability that was actually quite positive. It showed that we all had a common experience and moved us forward. And it meant that I ended up in conversations with members of my team that I hadn't spoken to for however many months. I have no doubt that somebody in the room will have taken a photo of that, and I'll see it later on Twitter. I'd rather not, but there we are. The boiler breaking, or the roof leaking, or whatever the problem was, I'm sure all of you experienced it during COVID. Something went wrong that was disastrous. The boiler broke and the lift broke in one of our buildings in the same week in November actually, which was nice. November was a great one. But in terms of some of that stuff, actually, some of those things happening did have opportunities because we were working differently anyway. So the boiler broke and the lift broke at National Museums Liverpool in one of our office buildings that nobody liked, called Dale Street, if anybody knows it. Horrible building, really horrible office space. Nobody liked it, and our long-term view was always to move out of it. And the boiler broke, the lift broke, and I was told it was £500,000, the twin cost was £500,000 to fix both. It was November, everyone was working at home. This is the office space with mainly our back of house staff who were at the time, I was like, they're coming back anyway, kind of thing. So instead of spending that money on fixing the boiler, whereas without COVID, we're in that constant cycle of something happens and you just fix it, you just move on and fix it. It gave us some space and some time to think about things differently. And so instead of spending £500,000 on the boiler and the lift, I spent £500,000 on the Midlands Railway building that we're in Liverpool and creating it into hot desking space, which for those villagers, we opened this space about 3 months ago now. Much nicer office space for those staff. They're able to come in and hot desk there and to use the facilities in a different way. I honestly think had the boiler gone and the lift gone without COVID, we'd have fixed both and just carried on going. But it gave us the opportunity to think about things a bit differently and to view that in a different way. And so sometimes I think that opportunity for just a bit of take a step back and a bit of reflection was kind of quite useful. And then finally, we're all trying to get used to this new normal, aren't we? What is the new normal? It's kind of an idea that people go, normally, it's like that 2019 thing, isn't it? Normally, as in 2019, National Museums Liverpool received 3.1 million visitors. What is normal anymore? We're all trying to get used to a new normal, and whatever that new normal is difficult for us. But it has changed the way in which we work. And I'm sure you're all on different scales of this spectrum, so it's interesting. I have conversations with my colleagues from the other national museums, and NML is one extreme of this spectrum, but we have the spectrum that says, I know some of you will be back in the office 5 days a week, and that will be your normal, and that's great, and that's where you are, and that's where your business needs you to be. And of course, my house staff have been back in 5 days a week for a very long time now. We're the other end of that in terms of our back of house staff, in that, controversially maybe, we have no rules to when our staff have to be in the office. So I know some people have said you've got to be in the office 3 days a week, or you've got to be in the office on a Wednesday, or you've got to be in the office wherever. We don't have those rules at the moment. We have, of course, the benefit of Jacob Rees-Mogg can't come around and leave a note on our desk. I know just people. So you can't do that, but we have gone completely hybrid in that sense, and we are holding a lot of hybrid meetings. Some people are in the office, some people are at home. We've invested in the tech to be able to do that. It works perfectly effectively to do that. We can all work in a completely new and flexible way. I attended my finance committee this morning from here. I was in one of the other rooms. I called into my finance committee meeting. I've never been able to do that before COVID because it just wouldn't have been acceptable for me to try and do that. The first meeting I had with the current Secretary of State for Culture, I was on a train. In hindsight, that was a mistake. But the reality, I completely misread the brief on this. It was a roundtable event. I thought the roundtable was going to have about 40 people online on the call. I thought, that's fine. I'll call in from the train, I'll wait. I'll write something profound in the chat. That'll be enough. That's all you need to do, isn't it? Misread that brief. There was only actually 8 of us in the room, and of course, the Secretary of State is from Liverpool and was very need to chat with my dodgy Wi-Fi. So in hindsight, the meeting for the train was not a good idea, and I won't be doing it again as a first meeting for Secretary of State. But the reality is we can work from anywhere now, and that's a positive thing. You know, I've got colleagues who can now pick up their kids from school every day, and we're much more flexible about those kind of things. I would actually say productivity in National Museums Liverpool has gone up, not down, since COVID. I think our productivity is at a higher level than it's been. And that kind of, and I was not a big fan of working from home before. I never worked from home. I was a 5 days a week in the office kind of person. The other week I was in 5 days. And by the time I got to the Monday of the next week, I opened my diary to see where I was going on the Sunday night, and I thought, okay, what about I'm going home late tomorrow? Because I just get more done at home, if I'm honest. I get through more stuff. So, you know, there is that kind of flexibility of how we work. It was probably there before, but it's much more socially acceptable, I think, now. We might get to a point in Enwell where I start introducing rules and saying when people have got to be in the office. And generally speaking, we do organise staff meetings, so we generally say teams need to meet face-to-face every 2 weeks kind of thing, and they come in and meet face-to-face every 2 weeks. But actually, I trust them. Their productivity is fantastic, they're all doing a marvellous job, and the flexibility works for me as much as it works for them. And the technology and all of those advances have meant that the world's moved on, and the way in which we work is different, and that's okay. And I kind of finished with the we're back video that we produced for reopening, just to reiterate that point about the joy again. COVID was not a joyous experience, it was really very painful, and still is quite painful in lots of ways, but it has produced some real moments of joy because it allowed us to really focus on what was taken away from us, and so we've been able to appreciate what we had before. So for me, there was opportunities, and it has been a bit of a roller coaster. There's been the ups and the downs of it, but there's a lot of stuff that we've learned from COVID that we won't lose moving forward, and actually I think that's been positive.